All right, hello, welcome to my masterclass, How Stress is Holding You Back from What You Truly Desire. I'm so excited that you're here. Chances are, if you opted in for this masterclass, you may have already connected with me elsewhere on Instagram or another place. But I'm Courtney Peacock, if you don't know that already, and I'm a certified coach and stress expert. And I help entrepreneurs and business owners embody a balanced approach to business and really step into their role as a CEO in integrity. So I help people build businesses that are in alignment with their values, essentially. And the reason why I teach on stress is that I truly believe that it's like the foundation to running a business in a calm, collected, confident manner where you feel really capable of what you're achieving and you are responding instead of reacting. So that's going to be a theme today that I talk about a lot, is that when you learn how to regulate your nervous system, you're going to have an easier time responding to things in your life and in your business, and therefore making more empowered decisions that truly reflect your values and that you feel good about, and that you're not going to question them or second guess yourself as much. So what we're covering today, we're going to cover a lot. This is a 90-minute training, and we're going to go really deep into the science of stress and how to learn how to manage it in order to leverage it and use it to your advantage. Which I'm really excited to share this with you today. It's really, truly life-changing work. But the whole picture of this is that I want you to start seeing how you can use stress management to overcome obstacles and mindset blocks and limiting beliefs in order to go after what you truly desire and what you really want in your business and in your life to look like. So the reason why this matters so much, and I'll get into this a little bit more, but it's really all about the way that our subconscious feels. On like a biological level, our subconscious is constantly trying to make sure that we're safe. And so when we don't feel safe, it's very hard to go after these like bigger ideas or take risks, which is something you have to do as a business owner. And if you don't feel safe, it's much harder to conceptualize what it looks like to achieve the things that you want to achieve and to really believe in yourself on like a visceral level that you can feel and be able to visualize. So, that's why I'm so passionate about this, is that with many of my clients and myself, this was really the missing piece to overcoming those limiting beliefs and being able to actually take rapid action toward their goals. So that I want the same for you. And I'm really excited that you're here today. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know that this is really going to change the way that you perceive stress and the way that it affects you and the way that you go after everything you want in your business life. So I can't wait to dive in. The first thing I want to talk about is just a general definition of stress. So I will send you these notes at the end when I send this replay, so you'll have access to my notes. But my favorite definition is just defined as a state in which homeostasis, which is the level of balance that our body is trying to achieve all the time. Homeostasis is really just your inner system that's like keeping your temperature regulated. It's keeping your heart beating. It's keeping your lungs working. Like it's all of those automatic things working behind the scenes to just make us feel like we have an equilibrium. So stress is defined as a state in which homeostasis is actually threatened or perceived to be threatened. We then reestablish homeostasis by a complex repertoire of behavioral and physiological adaptive responses. So that's where you'll hear me talk about the stress response. Essentially, there's like a few layers to this. There's the stressor, which I'll get into, like the thing that is making us perceive a threat in our environment. Then there's our body's attempt to adapt to the stressor, which is our stress response. And then there is a stress cycle that we have to go through in order to adapt properly, and not only adapt properly, but complete the stress cycle, which means like come back to a place of safety. Because if this all comes down to feeling safe, then it's like you're threatened, you respond to the threat, and then you overcome the threat and are safe. And so that's what the goal always is to feel safe at the end of that cycle. What's really interesting, and I don't think I understood this. Well, I didn't understand this for a long time. The reason why I got so interested in all of this was about 5 years ago. I was suffering from really crippling anxiety that was substance abuse related, and I decided to stop drinking alcohol. And I realized that, 80% of my anxiety was coming from this toxic substance that I was putting in my body. And this was after half of my life, being told by psychiatrists and family members that I had a chemical imbalance in my brain, and that's what was causing my anxiety. I put 2 and 2 together, though, and the same year that I started drinking alcohol when I was 15 was the same year that my anxiety started. And I did not drink for more than a couple months at a time for those 15 years. So it really kind of opened my eyes to taking a different approach to stress and anxiety. And so I dove into a lot of research and doing my own healing, if you will, about this stuff. And I was shocked, honestly, completely shocked that a psychiatrist had never told me what was going on and what stress actually was, and that anxiety was a symptom of stress. Maybe they didn't know it back then. I don't know, maybe the science is kind of new, but I was honestly shocked that I didn't even know what anxiety was. I thought it was just a character flaw. I thought it was something wrong with me. I thought it was a function in my body didn't work properly. But really it just turned out that due to various childhood experiences, unprocessed trauma, all these different things, my baseline of my homeostasis, that balance baseline, was heightened. And so I was in a chronic stress response for much of my life. And then I tried to cope by using alcohol. And that actually sent me into a higher chronic stress state because I was constantly poisoning myself. So undoing that took quite a bit of time, but I found that stress management was really the missing piece to being able to heal and feel safe enough to explore those things about my inner child and stuff that had happened to me and experiences that I've had that were contributing to that heightened stress response. So managing my stress actually made me feel safe enough to explore those things and then actually heal them. So that's why I'm very, very passionate about this. A disclaimer that I should have said at the beginning is that this is educational and entertainment only. I am not a mental health professional, nor do I claim that any of these methods will cure, heal, or diagnose you in any way. So if you're curious about working with a professional, I highly recommend speaking to a therapist or a mental health professional or your doctor about this stuff, and then moving forward, specifically, especially with any kind of trauma or stuff like that. So if you think about your stress like a fire alarm, that's a really great analogy, because it's essentially your stress response is just responding to a threat or a perceived threat, and then the alarm bells go off. And then your body is like, hey, brain, listen to me. I need something because there's a fire and I'm not safe. And the right thing to do would be okay, I got you. I'm going to grab some water and I'm going to put out the fire, and then we're going to be safe and we're good. But in today's modern environment, we are not putting out the fire whenever that happens because we're almost constantly being put into a stress state. So, I'm going to go into this more in a minute, but even little things like the temperature changing. I used to live in Austin, Texas, and when I started learning this stuff, I even noticed it within my body, the sensations that would happen from going in a 68 degree AC to walking outside where it's 105 degrees. Your body goes through kind of a shock feeling, and it adapts, it internally changes the temperature of your body in order to be safe outside. That's a perfect example of what is going on when we have a stress response. It just so happens that we also have these stress responses to things like having too long of a to-do list, or feeling scared that a friend is going to be mad at you if you say something or if you set a boundary. So there's different pieces of this that I'm going to explain in this training, but I just think it's really important to understand that stress is an integral part of being alive. It's a really big piece of our humanity and of our ability to survive. And the fact that we have survived for so many millennia is because of our stress response. It is quite literally responsible for evolution, or for getting past threats throughout evolution. So the scientist, Hans Selye, that coined the term stress he was many times quoted saying that he wished that he had chosen a different word for it because it had such negative connotation and there was so much tension about stress, and that people were really fearful of it. And he was like, to be without stress would mean that you were dead. It would literally mean like that you don't have life. So it's very important to remember that. Stress is only as bad as we ignore it. Like, to the degree that you do not take action, that's how bad it is for you. And it's really actually quite beneficial for us to leverage it and harness it and use it to our advantage. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so I'm sure that you guys have heard of fight or flight. That is one type of stress that's talked about a lot. Literally, like, you're either going to fight the lion or you're going to run away from it. That's what your body prepares you to do. So you encounter a lion and your body releases more glucose to your muscles and to your brain to like literally get stronger so that you can fight it, or think more on your feet. That's why your brain fills with glucose. Or like your pupils dilate, so you can see better. Like, all of these things start to prepare you for how you're going to respond. There's also a few other types of stress responses that are really interesting. This is kind of new research that's coming out. So one of those is freeze, which you may have heard of. This is like if you picture an animal just laying and playing dead. And some really interesting research is coming out that these animals oftentimes have kind of like a seizure as they come out of their playing dead. So they really kind of go dead. Like, they go completely limp. Like, some of them are unconscious, and then they have to kind of like come back to life. And they're finding that twitching that's kind of seizure-like, like the shaking that they do, is completing that stress cycle. And so you'll, hear in some like new age circles and stuff, there's a big push for ecstatic dance where you're kind of like shaking your limbs and letting go and like really dancing kind of, loosely. And they're finding that is actually a pretty effective way to complete the stress cycle, is for us to like shake our bodies. So just something to keep in mind. It might feel a little weird, but it works. So the next type of stress response is challenge. So this is a little different than fight because it's not preparing you to combat in order to save yourself. It's more of like, rising to the occasion. So if you're going to like give a big presentation and you need to like step up to the plate and give this really enthusiastic presentation, a great thing to remember is that your stress response is telling you like, hey, you're nervous because you need to be excited. It's not telling you you're nervous because you need to calm down. And this is why it's really integral to our performance to understand these things, because like, for example, I remember trying to get ready to give presentations back in the day. I was really, really scared of it. And I would sit there trying to take deep breaths and like calm down. And it just made it so much worse. And I wish I had known what I know now, where, like jumping up and down and pumping yourself up and talking to yourself or dancing and listening to really uplifting music is actually a much better approach when you're nervous in that way, because it helps your body get in alignment with what you're about to do and really feel like that energy that you need to bring. So just something that's really interesting to keep in mind. And then the next one that I love to talk about, especially, this is a little more prevalent in women because of our biology with taking care of our offspring, but men do have it too. It's just a little bit stronger in women. But it's called the nurture response. And nurture is like anytime you see someone that you are anticipating they're going to need your help, that's a nurture response. So like, if you're with your kids and one of them trips and like as you see them falling to the ground, you get that like that ping that you're getting a stress response. That is going to be a nurture response because your body is preparing you to go help them. It's one of the best things you can do, like even if they're okay and they get up and they're like, whoops, whatever. One of the best things you can do is go nurture them for your own stressor cycle to be completed. Obviously, you don't have to bother them and pick them up and hug them and whatever if they're like playing on a playground, but you can show affection to them and like let them know that, you saw it and that they're okay. Or also just tell yourself like, oh, they're okay, they're safe, like they didn't need me to nurture them. But just being aware of that helps you complete the stress cycle and then come back to a place of calm. So if they do need your attention, it's even better because a lot of times you will feel very stressed if someone you care about is stressed or hurt. So taking action to physically, give someone a hug or squeeze their hand or have that connection actually releases oxytocin, which is a chemical that is responsible for like feel-good hormones and calming us down and regulating our nervous system. So that connection with other people is actually very effective. So post-pandemic, hopefully we'll all be having more in-person connections with each other, because it is very powerful as far as regulating our nervous system and helping us come back to a place of calm. So as you can see, there's like different types of threats or perceived threats happening to us all the time. And something I love to teach is like, don't be scared of this stuff. Like, don't become obsessed with stress happening all the time. Just see it as like something that's really interesting and kind of exciting, because you get to take action in order to optimize your health. Really, your health is only going to be negatively affected if you completely ignore this and avoid it and don't adapt in the moment. So, like, I get excited now when I'm anxious. I know that sounds weird. People are always like, what? Like, why would you be excited if you feel anxious? And it's because I get to take action. I see it as a function outside of myself, like outside of my consciousness. It's something that my body is telling me to take action on. It's just a communication signal. So when I feel anxious, I check in, I drink some water, I think about what has happened, like what's going on in my environment, maybe what conversations I've had. Is there anything that I did today that isn't in alignment with my values, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. All of these things really impact us on a visceral level with our stress response. So it's important to just be aware so that you can take action, and then you're going to be optimizing that stress response and completing that stress cycle. And the reason why this is so powerful is because when you feel calm in your day-to-day, you make better decisions, you respond instead of reacting, and you're more present. And I'm so passionate about being more present, because this, right now is like really the only time we have, literally, like we've created these constructs of future and past, but like they do not exist. Right now is what you have. So that is truly like the reason for this, in my opinion, is that you enjoy the moment so much more deeply. And then you're able to truly enjoy the journey and like be there for people that you care about, all that good stuff. So the baseline that you want to be creating for yourself is that calm, like low stress level. For some of us, this is very difficult. I'll speak just from my own experience, because I don't like sharing personal client stories and stuff, and my experience I know the best. But for me, like when I was a kid, I wasn't very authentically expressed. I wasn't allowed to like be myself. I was often told like, be quiet, sit up straight, be polite, don't speak unless spoken to, kind of thing. So I really developed this heightened awareness for how I was impacting others, and was very overly affected by being like a burden on people. And so I was constantly in this intense, like, fight or flight mode. And so my stress levels were very, very high for a very long time. So when I started learning about this stuff, it took quite a bit of work for me to get my stress levels and my, everything lowered to a degree that felt calm and comforting. And I still have to work pretty hard at it. So this is going to be different for everyone. If you're someone who, we all have things that have happened to us, obviously, that are going to impact your stress response. But I guess what I'm saying is that it's just very relative. So for some people, this might take a few weeks of work. For some people, it could take ongoing more work. And I shouldn't say a few weeks, because it's never over. Like, you always have to be adapting, but it just will become much easier and second nature more quickly for some people than others. But the real goal is to just feel safe on a subconscious level. So you can literally like bring everything back to that. It's kind of like seems overly simplified when you think about it, but like most things that we do in our day to day is the function is just like, am I safe? Am I not safe? And then we make decisions, based on that on a subconscious level. So it's really, really interesting. Our automatic systems are really only concerned with that. And so these alarm bells that go off without us knowing are typically, just perceived threats in our environment. Okay, so let's get into the types of stressors. This is where it starts to get interesting. So there's 4 types of main stressors, and There probably is research on more than 4, but these are the 4 that I love to teach because they're just very straightforward and easy to understand and easy to remember. So the first one is environmental, the second is physical, the third is mental, and the fourth is emotional. So environmental stressors are going to be things like loud noises from construction across the street, or being in traffic and like being surrounded by people honking, or even just being in your car could elicit a stress response, honestly, because our biology is like, what is this? We're going 40 miles an hour right now, like whatever. Another one would be like lighting. Something I always work with my clients on is like making sure that their workspace has great lighting and is neat and orderly and organized, because these things in our environment can actually elicit a subconscious stress response, which can cause anxiety or fatigue or these other symptoms, because the alarm bells are going off. Like if your desk is a total mess, it can literally signal to your brain, like, this isn't safe. This is weird. Like, why is everything out of order? So no judgment if your desk is messy, but it's just like something to consider, that these things seem really subtle, but they can absolutely affect the way that we feel in our body. And lighting is a big one. So really superficial, bright lights, like I have lights up right now for filming this video, are probably eliciting a little bit of a stress response in me, because my body is like, well, these are like, superficial lights that maybe shouldn't normally be here. I always like to use the analogy of like, if a cave woman just was teleported to this apartment right now, she would be like, what is happening? This is wild. That's kind of how our biology feels. Like our physiology hasn't quite caught up with evolution yet. That might be a little extreme, but it's pretty close. All of the technology that's happened in the last couple hundred years, our biology is not ready for it. So that's why all of these things elicit a response. The next one, I do want to talk about temperature. So extreme heat has actually been shown to make humans more violent, like by a pretty notable level. So temperature is actually a big one that can elicit different responses. So temperature, like they say heat makes you more violent. So that would be like, it elicits like an aggressive, angry response. So just something to consider, that your temperature, like in your home, actually does have an impact on you. Or like if it's summertime and you live in Texas, maybe, be aware that you might be agitated a little more easily or get a little more aggressive when you don't really want to be. Okay, so the next one is physical. This is one of my favorite ones to talk about because we have the most control over this. I feel like our environment, obviously we can control when it's like inside, but we don't have a whole lot of control over like if someone honks at you or if there's construction going on or these other things, what the temperature is today. Physical is like a lot more about what you put in your body and the way that you move your body and the choices that you make surrounding that. So, everyone knows about like physical stress in terms of injury, like if you get in a car accident and obviously you hurt yourself and you have to go to the doctor and then you heal, like the inflammation or the healing that happens from your injury, like that causes stress for sure. Or soreness from working out, that's technically stress. But the things that I want you to focus on a lot are dehydration and nutrition, because for one, dehydration is very underrated as far as like stress and anxiety goes. I've had clients who literally all they changed, was drinking enough water, and their anxiety went down significantly. Because if you think about it, like our bodies need water to survive. You can go a couple weeks without food. You can only go a couple days without water. So it's like imperative that we have water, and our body knows that. And so we might know that like there's a sink right there and there's no threat because I can have water whenever I want. But your subconscious does not know that. Your nervous system does not know that. So if it detects that you're even 1% low body water, it will start sending off those fire alarm signals of like, holy crap, we need water now. Like, where's the water? We're going to die. Like, this is really serious, you guys. Listen to me. So that can be a pretty serious source of anxiety or whatever your personal stress response is, which we're going to talk about in a second. So dehydration is huge. It's always the first thing I have my clients reach for when they feel a stress response coming on, and it's really effective. So consider it. And then posture is a really interesting one. So we all, like, nobody's perfect. I've been working on my posture forever as an ex-personal trainer, and it's always like a process because we are just put in so many positions throughout our day that aren't natural. I mean, even like sitting like this probably isn't the best thing. But something really interesting that I learned from my mentor is that, like, if you're sitting like this at your desk, your brain thinks that your shoulder is about to pop out of its socket because it's not in a natural position. So it's going to send signals to your brain of like, what's wrong with your shoulder, dude? Like, what's happening? Put it back. So if you're sitting like that for hours, like, you're getting a stress response from your nervous system, letting your brain know that you're out of alignment. Pretty crazy. So it's very important to just think about these things. Another really huge effect of posture is the way that your lungs get oxygen. So if you're sitting in a nice, full open posture and you're breathing correctly, you're getting more oxygen to your lungs. So that's going to lessen the chances of your nervous system sending a message to your brain of like, your lungs aren't getting enough oxygen, So like, our body's always communicating with us. So having these things kind of like optimal in the back of your mind is really, really helpful. And again, like, I don't want you to become obsessed with this stuff. It's just really useful to like think about it as a function of your anatomy and your body working optimally instead of like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. Like, there's a lot actually that we can do to like bring our body back into balance. So this one, mental stress, this next one is huge for entrepreneurs. This is like a major, major business owner one. This is probably the one that like we work on the most in my coaching. And we're doing a huge portion of my upcoming program, the Embodied CEO, will be covering all of these, but we're going to work a lot on mental stressors because they're so common for business owners. And it's kind of more complicated than you'd think. So time stress is a big one. Like, do I have enough time to get this done? There's deadlines and pressure to perform and get all this stuff done. I have too many things on my to-do list. This can also be like poor boundary setting. Causes some mental and emotional stressors, not communicating properly. So then you have like expectations for things, micromanaging your employees, or not letting go of tasks that you're not good at or that you don't want to do. These are all going to be affecting your mental stress. And what's super interesting about mental stress is that it's psychological. So we actually we assign the perception to it. So we decide that we are stressed about these time things. It's a little different than like physical, because if you eat processed food and your body or your gut, lining is telling your nervous system, like, what the heck is that? I don't recognize this food. It's a foreign substance. Get it out. It's like toxic, because that's literally what's going on, by the way. It's very underrated, the effect that food has on anxiety, and that's one of the reasons. So those alarm bells are going off, but we can't change the way that our gut lining perceives processed food. You know what I mean? Like, you can't really like tell your gut like, hey, no, that processed food that's going in is good. Don't worry about it. It does like get used to it and then probably has less of a response to it. But with that said, you can kind of assign a perceived or not perceived threat on mental and emotional stress, which is really interesting. So perceiving how much you have to do as an obstacle and a challenge that you have to overcome, and like it's a game and you're excited about it, can change the hormones that are released into your brain, which is really wild. So that's mental stress. And then emotional stress is more, I like to think about emotional stress as the things that humans need to survive from each other. So like, we need other humans to survive, like hands down, that is real. I think it's really interesting that our society is moving toward, well, the US has always been this way, but very individualistic views of things. And I think it's because we've become detached from how crucial and critical other people are in our survival. Like, we quite literally need other people to survive. So the emotional stressors that you experience, even if they seem silly, are actually rooted in this. And so it's very important to take them seriously. This can be something as silly as like being afraid to show up on Instagram because you're going to get judged. Fundamental survival is acceptance of the group from the group. So being judged is actually like perceived as a pretty serious threat from our subconscious. So this is where mantras can be really helpful, where you remind yourself that you're safe. Like before you go on your stories on Instagram, kind of like giving that reminder to your subconscious of like, you know, showing up on my stories and being judged is not a threat to my safety. Like I will be okay. That can help actually quite a bit. Same thing with like fear of missing out or fear of rejection, like with clients and making sales, like reminding yourself before you get on a sales call, like this is not a threat to my safety. This is just something that I'm doing to connect with someone and get my services out there. Same thing with like doing things you don't want to do because of fear of how you're going to be perceived, or that someone will be mad at you if you say no, or that you feel obligated to do these things. Like that all comes back to emotional stressors. So it's really interesting. Like these 4 things impact us a lot in our day to day, and it all comes back to that safety, to our subconscious needing to feel safe. So just reminding yourself of like, okay, I have control over these certain things, and then the way that I perceive these other things can actually impact how my subconscious feels and if I feel safe going forward. So let's talk about how to recognize your unique response to stress. This is going to be different for everyone, but it does tend to match the type of stressor. Obviously, this isn't definitive. Everybody's biology is different, but there are definitely patterns with how each stressor gets a response in our biology. So for example, like headaches are very commonly linked to environmental and physical stress. So things like loud noises or bad smells can cause headaches. Same with physical stress, like being dehydrated. So that typically goes hand in hand. Fatigue is often associated with emotional and mental stress. So if you think about mental stress being like you're really overwhelmed, then sometimes we get fatigued or shut down or burn out. That's the connection there. And then irritability is typically, irritability actually is like all of them. So it's like if you're overwhelmed, you can be irritable. If you are hungry, you can be irritable. If you have too much to do, you can be irritable. If it's hot out, you can be irritable. So that's kind of like irritability, unfortunately, is like something that we experience with all stressors. And then anxiety is a symptom of physical stress and obviously emotional and mental stress as well. Environmental, I imagine too, but anxiety typically has to do with like what you're putting in your body. Because if you think about it, if you have like poisons like alcohol, just putting it out there, I am sober, so I'm biased. Or, processed food, or you were exposed to some kind of toxin, your body is going to set off those alarm bells, like get this out of my system, and that can cause an anxious response because it's like, hey, you need to listen to me. So just really important. I think like one of the main causes of anxiety, this is just a theory because I obviously haven't done like massive amounts of research on this or anything. I haven't performed a study. I'm just talking from my own experience and then many of my clients, but it seems like not living in integrity is a huge cause of anxiety for people. And this is something in the Embodied CEO that I'm going to be covering in depth because I'm really passionate about the idea that when you live in alignment with your desires and your values and you set proper boundaries and you're able to like communicate clearly, things just really fall into place and you feel a lot more inner peace. And you're also able to have more energy for the people that you love and the things that you love doing and like showing up and following through. So it's really kind of like a key piece of achieving your goals and really collapsing time is learning how to live in alignment and show up, authentically and express yourself authentically and exist authentically in your business the way that you want to. So I'm really excited for this new program. It's going to be amazing. And I'll tell you guys more about this at the end, but okay, so let's talk about what you can start doing. I'm really passionate about this being a proactive and preemptive practice. I see a lot of coaches teaching the toolbox method, which can be helpful. And obviously, like, I'm totally all for having a toolbox of things that you can turn to in order to help with addressing stress and anxiety. But I think it's too late once you get to that point where you have to reach for a toolbox. So I'm very passionate about in meditation, they say that the times that you need to meditate the most are when you don't feel like you need it, because this reinforces the habit and enables you to just be bulletproof. Like, if you're using your tools as a preemptive measure, then you're never going to get really stressed out. You're never going to get to that overwhelmed place. You're never going to get like where you have to shut down and be fatigued. I know this from experience. One reason why I'm so passionate about it is like I used to shut down monthly when I first started my business, because I would go, and I was doing all the shoulds and doing everything the way I thought I had to be doing it, and I was totally overwhelmed, and I would burn out and then have to shut down for like 3 days where I just didn't get out of bed, didn't do anything. And it's been about 3 years now since then, once I mastered this stuff, and that does not happen to me anymore. I am like, I haven't gotten sick. I don't take I rest when I need to, and it's really powerful. And so anyway, just be proactive about it. And studies actually have shown that waiting to address your stress can be more harmful, because like a perfect example of this would be someone who is go all day, and they work for 6 hours, 7 hours, and they didn't take any breaks, and they didn't drink enough water, and they were like doing all these tasks, and everything was crazy, and they're just like so productive and blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, it's okay, because I'm going to relieve all this stress with an hour-long HIIT workout at the end of my day. People would think like, great, they can work out, that's rad, like they did all this stuff, but it sets off this chain reaction in your body where you're never adapting to the stress, because when you go into your HIIT workout, your stress levels are already so high, like your chemicals in your body, like cortisol and adrenaline, that it actually just creates a higher baseline, because it's telling your body like, no, this is normal, you're like this all the time. And then it kicks you into like not being able to sleep well, and then you keep going. So it's really important to address this stuff throughout your day incrementally as it happens. And I'm going to talk all about like how to do that in a minute, and all the things that you can do to take action. So one of the ways that I work with my clients on bulletproofing their stress response that is super impactful is finding mindfulness in the mundane. So I don't jump into meditation teachings with my clients unless they're interested in it, and then we kind of start with like 3 to 5 minutes a day, because it is a practice that like I think is thrown around a lot as something that you can just kind of start doing, but it's actually a pretty like, what is the word? It's like a pretty expert thing to have to learn how to do. Sorry, I can't think of the word right now. It's not something that you can just like jump in and start meditating for 15 minutes. It really takes quite a bit of slow practice and patience. So I like to teach mindfulness in the mundane first, and then move into into meditation. So what this is like, when you wake up in the morning, a lot of people have that feeling of anxiety. I used to have it too. And this is actually because cortisol is released. It's very high in the morning when you wake up. First part of the day, you have pretty high cortisol, and then it kind of lowers throughout the day. And if you wake up to an alarm clock, this is even spiked even more, because you're awoken in like a panic mode. So I always like really encourage people to teach yourself how to avoid the alarm clock. It's much easier than you would think, as long as you're getting enough sleep. Like I wake up within like a 10-minute window every single day. It's pretty magical actually, because you'd think that your body would vary, but it knows, like it's really, really close, like sometimes within just a couple minutes. And, just set an emergency alarm for when you have to get up, so that you're never late or sleeping in past any important things. But when you allow your body to wake up naturally, you're actually completing your sleep cycle, which impacts your circadian rhythm and your stress levels and your whole health. Like I would say that health kind of starts with sleep. It's one of the best medicines out there. But anyway, if you're interested about that, DM me, because I love talking about sleep. But one way that I have found to be so impactful, for myself and my clients is when you wake up with that anxiety and you're feeling kind of like, oh God, just take 10 deep breaths. Like lay there, don't get out of bed, don't do anything yet. Just take 10 really nice deep breaths through your diaphragm. Let yourself like chill, and then get out of bed. And then practice mindfulness in the mundane. Like let's say you go and brush your teeth. Like don't look at your phone. I always say like protect your energy in the mornings is very important, especially with social media, where when you're looking at your phone and Instagram opens up and you have no control over what comes into your space, that's going to set off alarm bells of like, if it's a cute cat, then great, that's happy. But if it's like something in the news that you didn't have control over, like getting prepared to see that, that's going to elicit a stress response. And then you throw your whole morning off. So I'm really passionate about this. Like, try not to look at your phone in the morning until you've done your routine or your mindfulness practice. And like, I work with a lot of moms, and this does not have to be some extensive, complicated thing. It can literally be 10 minutes of mindfulness. So like taking those 10 deep breaths as you get up, being present while you brush your teeth, going to make your coffee and taking a moment to like smell the coffee beans and just be aware of like the birds singing outside or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just really important to start finding ways to be mindful in the mundane, because then it will translate slowly into active meditation, which is like literally what the goal is to just feel this way all the time as you're going through life. And soon you will realize, the more you work on this, like I have realizations now where I'm like, whoa, like I'm so present all the time. This is amazing. And it really just becomes second nature. So changing your mindset around stress is like the next big step, I think, after you kind of have mastered this proactive approach of being mindful in the mundane, making sure that you're checking in with yourself throughout the day. I'm going to give you guys access to a worksheet that has a checklist in it so that you can check in with yourself once an hour throughout the day and just be like, okay, did I get up and stretch or move? Have I had enough water? Like, what's going on with me? Like, you just want to check in and take action where you need to. The next step is just shifting your mindset from I'm so stressed to something's happening in my body that needs attention, and I'm going to take action in order to get back into balance. This is like very important. It also can be framed as like, I need to overcome this challenge. If it's something that you're like, just a challenge that you're presented with that you need to get over and overcome, having this mindset can actually release different chemicals into your brain. It releases more DHEA, which is actually responsible for forming new pathways in your brain and increasing the volume of your brain. So it's like pretty wild. You're not only going to get smarter, but you're going to get a bigger brain. Like, that's pretty rad. But you literally can think of this as like the volume of your brain increases because it's creating more mental pathways that are letting you know like, oh, I did this before, I can do it again. So it's like a future reminder when you encounter a similar challenge that you've got it, you're good, and then it becomes easier. It's perceived as being easier. It's not technically easier, but the more we do this stuff, that's like what resilience is emotionally and physically, like being better equipped to handle these situations. That is literally what resilience is. So really, really cool. Just practice having a challenge mindset around stress. A really great book about this is called The Upside of Stress by Kelly McGonigal. And she goes into like a lot of studies that they did studies on this that are pretty mind-blowing, actually. So if you're interested, I would definitely check out that book. Okay, so next, I want to talk a little bit about completing the stress cycle. There's a book by Emily Kiyosaki, I think is her name, called Burnout. And I highly recommend checking that out. They talk a lot about the stress cycle and how important it is to complete the stress cycle. So I talked earlier about like the types of stressors and kind of like, you have this fight or flight, you have freeze, you have nurture, and you have challenge. And the stressors are the environmental, mental, physical, emotional. And then you have your response, which is going to be like the fatigue or the anxiety or the agitation or these other symptoms of stress. And then you have to complete the stress cycle. So you have your initiator, you have your response, you have the adaptation that you have to take in order to get back into balance. But then the most important part is getting back into balance. And what that means is like you go from, oh shit, I'm not safe, to, okay, we're all good, we're safe. Once your body knows, literally how you can think of this is like if there's a bear chasing you in the woods and you make it to your cave and there's someone there to close off the cave and you both are like, woohoo, we're safe. Like that's literally what the stress cycle is, but it just happens to also apply to like getting an email you didn't want to get, or going to a birthday party when you don't feel like going to a birthday party, like whatever those things are that are perceived as threatening, that aren't really threatening. So just being cognizant of like, how can I figuratively or literally complete this stress cycle so that my subconscious feels safe and my nervous system gets back into balance and I can go on with my life and I've adapted. So ways that you can do this are deep breathing. So one of my favorite tools in all of this is breath work, because it is really the only automatic system that we can regulate ourselves and kind of, communicate to your brain like, hey, I got this, I'm in control. Because you can't really like stop your heart from beating or, stop your blood from flowing and circulating like dead in its tracks, but you can stop your breath and then have your breath go again. So it really signals to your nervous system like, hey, I'm in control, like a reminder almost, which is really, really cool. Like that we can override this system and use it to our advantage. So that's like the first thing I go to whenever I feel stressed or anxious, is taking a few deep breaths and really reminding myself like I am in control here. I'm able to observe my anxiety, so therefore I am not my anxiety. Really important thing to remember. The next one is getting oxytocin. So I've talked about this earlier, but this is the chemical affiliated with like the nurture response and affection and the feel-good hormone that you get from like hugging other people or being affectionate with other people. So I always say like, I don't know if this works, but giving yourself a hug and kind of like telling yourself you're safe if there's nobody around, I can't hurt. I don't know if that actually releases oxytocin though. And then exercise is a huge one, can be really effective, but just remember that you want to be in a non-reactive state when you exercise. So like if you've been super stressed all day, just make sure that you take time to like stretch and take deep breaths and really check in with yourself and have some water before you work out, instead of just going from that like heightened, agitated, stressed state to a workout. Like you definitely want to calm yourself down before getting back into the exercise game. Walking is really effective. And then mantras are like one of my favorite things. I really love the idea of, overriding your subconscious and letting it know that you're safe and being able to have that conversation with yourself, because it's just really effective. And it's kind of like, self-trust is a huge thing that we'll be doing in the Embodied CEO. It's actually an entire week that we're going to go into self-trust. And one of the most fascinating things about self-trust is that our brain doesn't know the difference between you breaking a promise with yourself and somebody else breaking a promise. And same goes for the way that you talk to yourself. So like if you are, constantly putting yourself down and having these negative self-talk things going on, your brain thinks it's someone else. Like it's really hurtful and harmful. So this, the mantras kind of help cultivate a nicer inner dialogue and really nurturing inner dialogue that I think is really important when you're going through learning how to regulate your nervous system. So here are a few things that just help you regulate your nervous system, which in turn could lead to completing that stress cycle. So obviously this isn't like, these are different for everyone. Like you're going to have to kind of find the tools that work for you and that make you feel calm. But these are options. Just giving you options. So deep breathing, again, it just signals to your brain that you're in control. I just think it's so cool that we can override this system. Earthing or grounding, I'm a big fan of. If you follow me on Instagram, you see that I do this every day, especially now that I live in a high-rise apartment complex where I can't just walk outside and put my feet on the earth. I walk to the park every single day, or like if I'm, on my way back from the store, I'll like scoot over to the park and take my shoes off and sit there for a minute. You really only need like 10-15 minutes for this to take effect. And the research that's going on right now is very promising about this. It is essentially like the electromagnetic field of the earth. Sounds really weird, but it counteracts the negative ions that we are exposed to all the time by not being on the earth. So this makes perfect sense to me because I'm kind of a hippie. And I like truly believe that we've gotten so disconnected from nature that we even like oftentimes forget that we are part of nature more than we are part of like technology, even though we've created all of these things that, you know, are like extensions of us at this point. But it's really important to come back to nature as much as you possibly can. And a great way to do this is to just put your bare feet on the grass, like in your front yard, at the park, whatever. Not concrete, because you want the actual earth to be on your bare feet. But you can kind of think of it as acting similarly to antioxidants. So it's really just like counteracting the negative ions that we've been exposed to and recharging us. Like there's actually been research that shows that you need less fuel, aka food, when you are connected to the earth more, whether that's in the ocean or on the earth's surface. Scientists are finding that you don't need as many calories, which is really fascinating. It's like we're actually taking energy, charging ourselves from the earth. Like, what? So cool. Another one that's really neat is they've done research that shows that looking at the greens of plants or greenery can actually lower our cortisol levels. So I always take time when I'm on a walk to like really take in my surroundings and look at the trees and the leaves and take some deep breaths and listen to the birds sing. Like I really feel passionately about this, that connecting to nature is one of the most powerful ways to lower anxiety in your stress response, but you have to be aware of what you're doing. You can't just like go hiking and be like, well, this is supposed to be helping me. Like, why isn't it helping? I've seen that a lot, actually. And I want to, like, hug that person and be like, you got to take it in. Like, you have to be aware that it is lowering your cortisol. Like, really be present. None of this stuff works unless you're present. You know, like, you got to be really present. So smells are also another thing. So I'm just kind of, like, randomly or rambling these off, but I know it's not very interesting maybe, but smells are really powerful. So another thing that I encourage my clients to do is like if you're on a walk and there's some rosemary, like just you don't have to pick it, but just rub your fingers on it a little bit and then smell your fingers, take it in. If you see like a beautiful flower that smells good, smell it. Don't eat anything that could be poisonous. But smells are just really powerful. So I always say like no synthetic fragrance. They've actually shown that those are hormonal disruptors that can cause cancer. So like, please stay away from scents in your home and otherwise that are synthetic. It's really bad for you. But any natural scents, natural aromatherapy, you know, all that, really good. And then dancing is an amazing way to not only recharge your energy, but to just shift your mindset from whatever is going on. If you're in like kind of a negative place, dancing can be an incredibly effective way to regulate your nervous system and activate your vagus nerve, which is a nerve that connects like basically your whole body. It's really wild. And it's what's responsible for putting you in that rest and digest mode, which is like the calmer place. So even though dancing is active, it activates that nerve, so then therefore it can help you feel more calm after you've completed your dancing. So I solo dance like every morning. And something really interesting too is like looking in the mirror while you're moving your body can actually solidify your sense of self. I had a really poor sense of self from my childhood, and when I got sober I had to do a lot of like somatic work in order to feel connected to myself and like know that I existed. It sounds kind of crazy, but and that's one way that really worked for me. So if you're a highly sensitive person like I am, HSP, singing, humming, and chanting can be extremely effective for regulating your nervous system. This can literally be just like humming to yourself a little bit or singing along with a song. I just incorporated chanting in my daily meditation practice, and I feel it on like a really deep level that it is super calming and regulating for me. So I highly recommend it. It feels a little weird to chant out loud at first, but the more you do it, the more normal it becomes, and it's really, really effective. It can also, if you're not like used to chanting, it can over-regulate your nervous system and make you feel a level of calm that you're really not used to. Like if you're somebody who's very, very used to a chronic stress response, and you go into like a deep meditation and chant for 30 minutes, you might feel so regulated that you like start to detach a little bit. So it is very important to like ease your way into these things. Okay. Solfeggio frequencies, there's no science behind this, I don't think, that I'm aware of, but these are called sound healing frequencies, and I just love them. Look them up. It's these different frequencies that just like really help you feel calm. I know that some people do claim that sound has healing properties, and I wouldn't be surprised, but I personally have not done any research on like how much science there is behind that. Talking to people is very effective. So this comes back to the nurture response of like actually getting it out there and being nurtured by them and letting people know how you're feeling. Being vulnerable can be a wonderful way to regulate your stress response. If you're not comfortable voicing it, then voicing it to yourself, like either recording a voice message or writing it down in your journal. I do remember in my certification, they were very adamant about people writing things down instead of like typing or using your phone, because it can solidify like the physical act of writing things down, especially things like goals or letting go of things in order to like not feel anxious. It's very powerful to write it down. So just keep that in mind. And then obviously gratitude and being present are two major ways that affect your nervous system. So this is talked about all the time, but anxiety is caused by being ripped from the present moment a lot of the time. So it's literally like future or past worrying. When you're fully present, it is very hard. I don't know if it's possible to be anxious. Like if you're actually truly present, I would argue that it's not possible to be anxious. So that's always the goal, is like coming back to yourself in this very moment and being grateful for this very moment is like the most powerful thing you can do. And it takes practice. Like this is something that I've been working on for years and years. So just don't give up and stay in tune. And I think it starts with learning how to regulate your nervous system so that you can feel safe being present. Like, because being present is kind of fucking scary sometimes. Like, we're constantly very busy and like doing all these different things to distract ourselves. So I think just being present in itself can be very challenging sometimes for people. And like, I started with guided meditations or listening to music while I meditated. Like, you don't have to go all in with like silence and being just alone with your thoughts. Like, there's a lot of ways to ease your way into this stuff. All right, so the last thing is changing your energy and being aware of your energy and changing your environment when you need to. So, that saying, like, you can't heal in the environment that made you sick. I think it's really important to understand how effective it is to, even on like when you're not trying to get away from something unhealthy, but just trying to feel more calm and present, and like you can focus. If you're a business owner, this is huge, is like taking a moment to take a break before you switch tasks, maybe moving to a different room in your house or going to a coffee shop. These are all ways that you can be more productive and, and be more present. So just shifting your energy a little bit can be really effective. Okay, so we are, have about 15 more minutes. So, there's a lot. Like when I work with clients, it's such a holistic experience. Like I teach stress management that ends up being like all these other things that you wouldn't really realize are causing stress, like poor boundaries and people pleasing and not being authentically yourself in your business, not existing authentically. Like something I'm so excited about in the Embodied CEO is that we are going to work on helping you exist authentically in your business so that you're not focusing on like shoulds or comparing yourself or doing what other people are doing, like really defining success for yourself and embodying that so that you can be present and enjoy the journey and not worry so much about like if you're doing it right or if you're doing what you should be doing. I think that's a huge thing. And it also enables you to stop judging others because you're safe. Like you're in a responsive, non-reactive space. And so you're able to stop judging yourself and stop judging others, which is really cool. I also teach a lot in this program on, focusing on the right things in your business, like doing less with more focus and being able to differentiate between the essential tasks and the non-essential tasks and being able to outsource things that you shouldn't be doing or that you don't want to do. Letting go of that control can be like really powerful for business owners and not micromanaging, like being able to ask for help, all of these things. And they all cause a lot of stress and we're going to nail them down in this program. I can't wait. And then the main, I think what's responsible for this like lack of discipline, I don't really love the word discipline, but the thing that so many entrepreneurs struggle with of like, I'm never getting enough done. There's always so much more to do. Like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not enough. I'm not disciplined enough. Like, all of that is, you know, one, it's like a story you're telling yourself, but it also comes back to this self-trust and not being able to follow through and not believing in yourself. So that's what I want to talk about for the rest of this training is like feeling safe in your subconscious enables you to trust yourself, to take action, to follow through, and to not be in that reactive state of like, oh God, I'm so stressed. I'm so not disciplined. I need to do more. I need to do more. I need to do more. When you feel calm, you're able to like see the world differently, see your business differently, and think more clearly and be like, okay, is this important? No, this is not important. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this other thing that's really important. And you may only do 3 important things instead of 10 non-important things, but those 3 things are going to move your business faster than you could ever imagine. So getting really clear on this starts with being able to feel calm running your business. I believe this so deeply. Another huge thing of this that I've seen with myself and my clients that's so impactful is like just that general ability to believe in yourself is strongly affected by your stress response. If you're somebody who's in chronic stress mode all the time and your nervous system does not feel safe, you are less likely to be able to visualize and conceptualize a future version of yourself because all you can see in this survival mode is this. Like, your subconscious is literally blocking you as a precaution because it's trying so desperately to keep you safe. So I don't know if you've ever experienced that before. It's something that I'm very familiar with is like journaling and visualizing and being like, okay, like I see this future self, I know her, but not really viscerally feeling it. Like I could not put myself in that reality until I did this work. And then it was like, holy moly, like I can absolutely see and feel her. And I started taking action very rapidly and saw things happen in my life that like I can't even explain. It was so cool how fast it happened. So I really I think that it all starts here. I think that a lot of times these mindset blocks that we're taught, you know, Instagram is like so notorious for just overly simplifying things and being like, change your thoughts, change your life. But it's like, sometimes you can change your thoughts without actually being able to believe those thoughts because your subconscious doesn't feel safe. So if you regulate your nervous system, then you're safe enough to like even be able to consider healing past experiences and trauma that you've gone through in order to overcome these mindset blocks. So like, again, therapy is really useful for this. I'm not an expert in that way, but just being able to do that, like inner child work, like you have to feel safe enough in order to go there. Like if you don't feel safe, that stuff is off limits. Like your subconscious is like, what? We're not going to do that. So it's just really important to consider like how impactful this truly is and how like when you are in a survival mode in your life all the time, your brain and body aren't functioning optimally. Like certain systems shut down. Like even just your digestive system is not working optimally because it's not prioritizing it. It's like, no, she's trying to survive. She doesn't need that. So then you're reacting instead of responding. Then you're judging others instead of being able to reflect and respond and look at yourself and like turn within, be more patient. Then you're making decisions in your business that like may not be in alignment with your values. And you're like, why did I do that? Like that was not in alignment at all because you're in a survival mode, in a reactive state, just like buying the next program that's going to fix everything for you, or, you know, working with someone that you don't really want to work with, or feeling this like, you know, oh, I have to accept this client because they're going to be the only client that's willing to pay me. Like these things happen all the time. And I think it's so powerful to like calm down and be able to be responsive and think about how these things are all playing out in your life and your business and really make clear decisions that aren't rooted in fear. Like they're not rooted in fear. They're rooted in a very calm and collected place. It's really powerful. Okay, so the last thing I want to touch on is how this relates to your accomplishments, because obviously the name of this masterclass was how stress is holding you back from everything you desire. Pretty big promise, I know, but I feel really strongly about this. So essentially, like, the science of behavior change is something that I dove into years ago when I got sober. Nothing against 12-step programs at all, but I personally didn't feel connected to the 12-step approach. And so the approach that I took was learning what had happened to me, and really diving into, I'm kind of a seeker. I really dove into learning the science behind substance abuse and addiction and what had happened to my brain and what was going on. And something that I learned was, one, I learned all about the science of behavior change. So how to actually get myself out of this hole that I had dug for myself, and how to change my brain in order to rewire things and think differently so that I could move on. And then also that unhealed trauma and a heightened stress response literally turn into addiction a lot because it's a coping mechanism. My body, my homeostasis was out of whack, and so I was reaching for the wrong thing, but I was reaching for a thing to bring my body back into balance. And what's really weird about substances, or anything really, you can kind of get addicted to whatever, is that your body gets tricked into thinking that that is your baseline. So my new baseline, was here, and then it was here with alcohol, but my body thought that that was normal, even though I was in a constant stress state. So all of these things are connected, and the reason that this has a lot to do with your accomplishments is because that behavior change piece is super, super important. And in order to take action on your goals, you need to feel, this is relative, it's different for everyone. Obviously, that's why, to say that, I don't know, Jeff Bezos, he doesn't feel stressed, which actually I wouldn't be surprised because I feel like he's probably a sociopath, but don't tell anyone I said that. I shouldn't make generalizations like that, but anyway, to look at someone and be like, well, why were they able to accomplish all this stuff if they've never regulated their stress response or they're not aware of this? And it's because it's all relative. Everybody is different. So the reason why I'm speaking to you and the reason why you're here is because you are having, thoughts about what could I accomplish if my nervous system was regulated and if I was more present? And not only what can you accomplish, but how much more can you enjoy this process and this journey? That's why I'm so happy that you're here. It's such an amazing way to view your life. So anyway, okay. I want you to first recall times in your life that you have achieved things that you didn't think were possible. That's the first step of behavior change. It's critical in cognitive, function for us to be able to see that we can do something. We have to believe it, essentially, is what I'm saying. It's so much more likely that we accomplish things that we actually believe we can do. And so as you work on your stress response and as you get more calm and collected and you regulate your nervous system, I want you to also start journaling on okay, what are the accomplishments that I've done in my life that I didn't think were possible or that really surprised me? And how did I do it? What steps did I take to do that? That's going to start rewiring your brain to think about those challenge responses and be more aware of oh, I've done this before, I can do it again. It's going to remind your brain to build those pathways back. And then another thing to keep in mind too that's really interesting with the next piece of this habit change puzzle is that motivation, everyone thinks is intrinsic, which is really rare actually. It's not very common that people have intrinsic motivation. And intrinsic motivation is when you are just internally motivated. You're just able, do you know anybody like that? That's just no, don't even have to think about it. I'm just going to go do the thing. And I don't have any resistance or anything. That's actually pretty rare. Extrinsic motivation is when you're motivated by an external factor. So a reward system or some kind of benefit that you're going to get from the thing. You don't just need your desire to do it. That's much more common. But something that isn't talked about a whole lot, and it's pretty brand new science, is that serotonin, the chemical that's often known as the happy chemical, happy hormone, is actually created in your gut. And it is responsible for more than just being happy or content. It's actually responsible for motivation. And the way that hormones work in our body are they're just communicators. So, you release serotonin and it lets your brain know that you should be a little happier. It also lets your brain know hey, take action to get that thing done that you want to do. Literally moves your body into action. And if you're missing serotonin, then it's very possible to think, I need to do that. Like, let's say you need to do the dishes. I need to do the dishes. I know I need to do the dishes. Cool. Why am I not doing the dishes? Like, am I just sitting here? I'm not getting up to do the dishes. That could very much so be because you don't have enough serotonin to literally like make your brain move your limbs and get up and go do the dishes. So this is something that they're finding that, so many Americans especially have poor gut health, which is impacting so many of the functions in our body, one of which could be this. And I really encourage anyone watching this to work with a functional medicine doctor and heal your gut lining. I did it last year and it changed my life. I have so much more energy. I feel like a literal different being. It's wild, but that's like a whole other conversation. Feel free to DM me if you're curious about like how to start that process. But something that is connected with the serotonin conversation and motivation is that if you're in a constant stress response, like we talked about earlier, your digestive system isn't going to be working properly, which means it might suppress serotonin. So your stress function is going to impact your motivation directly in your health. So it's super important. But past that, the process of habit change, once you have your health kind of in check where you feel calm enough to take action and your serotonin is in a good place so that you feel motivated to take action, then it's just all about observing the behavior you want to change and setting the goal of like what you want to accomplish, looking for patterns in order to determine this, like what has worked for you before, what didn't work before, like what were barriers that got in the way, what are the things like actually holding you back. If it literally is that feeling of like, I know what I need to do, but I cannot do it, I would really get serious about your health and the stress side of things. I think that is like very much so responsible for that feeling of like feeling stuck, but knowing exactly what you need to do. It's going to regulate your nervous system to feel safe taking those risks, and then also regulate your health so that the right hormones are being communicated to your body so that you can take action within your body. The next step is kind of disrupting the old behavior. So if you're like, I know what I need to do, and this is the step that I need to take next, and I have the skills. Like sometimes this is another overly simplified thing on Instagram is like, well, just do it. Messy action always. Like you can do it. It's like, well, no, you also have to kind of understand what you're doing or like make sure that you have the skills. Obviously you can start trying new things and learn as you go, but I also think it's really important to like not discredit the fact that like, if you want to be a doctor, you can't just like go be a doctor. Like there's a lot of things you have to do in between that. And the same goes for business. Like, you want to run an evergreen course, like you're going to have to really nail and make $1 million. Like you're going to have to really nail your marketing and the messaging and creating a course that's super high value and finding the right audience and like all of these things that you have to learn. So really being realistic, I think helps a lot about what steps you have to take. And then doing the thing over and over and over in order to rewire your brain and like make yourself feel more capable. And you will make mistakes, you will fall off track. That's just part of being human. But like the real magic happens when you're able to feel safe making those mistakes, because mistakes are like literally where the magic happens in business. Like today, I didn't hit record on my masterclass. So, it actually worked out because this is going to be an evergreen masterclass. Hi guys. And I didn't want to have like, the people who came to the live video, I want to protect their privacy. So it actually worked out great because I didn't have to record this anyway. But initially when I got off the call, I was like, oh my gosh, I did not record it. And big mistake, but like I'll probably never make that mistake again. So it's a really important thing to be comfortable and feel safe making mistakes in business, because everyone looks at like, oh, well, it was a failure. First attempt in learning is an acronym to remember for fail that I love, because there is no failure. Like failure does not exist. It's literally just a step in the direction that you're wanting to go. Who is it? Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, used to always say, I like to fail fast. Or I like to fail and fail fast. And he said that because he learned so much from each mistake. Like he knew that he was going to get to his destination much faster if he was willing to fail than most people. So just a really wonderful thing to remember, whatever your thoughts are on Nike. I'm from Eugene, Oregon, so I'm biased, but All right, so the next steps to take, are just be easy with yourself. Start small. I think the best place, and I'll include this, I have an ebook that you can go in and get this checklist from. But just start with checking in with yourself throughout the day. Tune into like bodily sensations. Pay attention. Like, are you really anxious when you wake up in the morning? Take 10 deep breaths if that's the case. Practice mindfulness in the mundane. Something that I love that I forgot to mention is like talk to your kids about this stuff. Like, I've worked really closely with a lot of moms who got really clear and transparent with their kids. Like, hey, I'm kind of stressed right now. Do you want to take some deep breaths with me? And it's amazing. These kids, like, they are so much more in tune with the way their bodies work and what they need that, like, it's actually really amazing to have watched the way that these children have helped their parents overcome stress and anxiety because they just have like an inclination to understand it. You'd be very surprised. Like, sometimes we think these really big concepts can't be understood by children, but they do a really good job. So move your body, get up and take breaks, like slow down, enjoy the flowers, enjoy your coffee in the morning, drink enough water, like live your life. Like, that's the whole message I want to really be communicating here, is that like I worked at a retirement home for 6 years and it was non-assisted living, but I saw a lot of people at the end of life with hospice, and the people who were not like fazed by their impending end of life were the ones who you could tell like really had experiences and valued their relationships and were present and were themselves. Like, I think the number one regret of the dying is that they didn't do the things they wanted to do in life and they didn't express themselves authentically. And the number two is working too much. So like, as much as I am so passionate about building businesses and helping people build businesses, my whole goal is to help you build a business that reflects your values and enables you to be present, because that's really all we have. That's all that matters. So understanding your own unique stress response is the next thing that I would say you should really pay attention to. Learn how to take action in order to adapt, and then just make sure you're covering your health bases. Like, take care of yourself. We only get this one body. It is always there for you. If you think about it, I heard this the other day and I loved it. Like, you are the only one that's always been there for you. Like, always. Like, any hard night you've ever had, like crying your eyes out, you have been there for yourself. You've woken up in the morning with yourself. You've listened to all of the chatter and all of the self-doubt and all of these things. It's like pretty amazing to think about. So it's like you should really take care of yourself because you are your biggest cheerleader and support in this world. Like, we don't have any guarantee of anyone else. So thank you so much for coming to this training. And my 4-week program, the Embodied CEO, is starting on June 7th, so just a couple weeks. And for coming to this training and being a part of this masterclass, you get a really awesome offer on the Embodied CEO bundle. So what this is it's my course, which is a stress and systems management for CEOs, 6-module course. It's really amazing. It has like all of my trainings on stress, which you just learned a lot of things, but the course is different. It's more geared toward business owners in stress management, so a lot of productivity tips and communication and boundaries. I'm really passionate about this. So you get the course, and then you also get access to the 4-week coaching experience, which is a group coaching program that I'm doing live starting June 7th. And the breakdown of that program is the first week we're going to do stress, and totally different from this training. Like, we're doing a whole other breakdown in order to help you like create the foundation of operating a business without sacrificing your quality of life. And then the second week is sight. So we're going to do how to amplify your business vision by living in alignment with your values and in integrity, which is super awesome. This like enables you to get so much more done and to feel really confident making decisions in your business and to just experience that inner peace and that joy of building a business and enjoying the journey. And then week 3 is synchronicity. So this is essentially like a little more of the woo-woo side of things. It's going to be how to use your intuition to create magnetism in your business. So I'm really passionate about like the way you exist within your business being in alignment with what you truly desire, and then also the energy that you attract. And I'm not like super woo-woo, so I don't want to give that impression, but I definitely like use a lot of tools in the intuitive spiritual space that I will be teaching on. And then week 4 is self-trust. So this is how to cultivate unshakable confidence and an ability to follow through with ease that enables you to like really go after those larger than life ideas that you have rapidly and like not feel stuck and not second guess yourself and not procrastinate for like weeks or months or however long. So the bonus to this bundle is my whole systems I'll be helping you build out the back end of your systems. It is included in the course, like you get access to all my templates in the course. But in the program, I will actually be supporting and helping with that. So the logistics are super straightforward. We're going to do a 90-minute training every week and then like an office hours that's live, that's 2 hours. So you actually get 3.5 hours with me a week, which I'm super excited about. I can't wait to support the people who join this program. I've really poured like my whole heart and soul into this, and I can't wait to help you build a business that's like, you know, reflective of your values and just help you like flourish from the inside out and not just focus on like the hustle and all that. So really just aligning your business with the life that you want, which I can't wait for. Anyway, thank you so much for coming to this training. And if you have any questions, you can DM me on Instagram at CourtneyPeacock_ or email me at hello@CourtneyPeacock.com. And I will be sending links to the program and these notes with the recording of this training. So, all right. Thank you so much.